On June 26, 1988, Atlanta police responded to the intersection of Rawson Street and Formost Street on a deceased person call. A passerby discovered the victim's body lying in a grassy area next to the street and called police. The victim, later identified as Leonard Hill, had sustained 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Witnesses in the area reported hearing gunshots nearby where the victim was found. Homicide investigators at the time followed some leads. However, this case went cold and remained unsolved. So, Antonio, you said that 30 minutes later, your mom decides to show up at your house and she tells you, I'm here to tell you exactly what happened.
Yes, like I said, she arrived less than 30 minutes to my home. We sat down on the couch. She looked me right in my eyes. My mom, she said, I have really been dreading this day to have this conversation with you. And she flat out told me, your uncle killed your dad. And I remember her telling me that. It just became so, I used the word unreal for me. Mm-hmm. The first image that came to my mind was my dad's funeral.
Wow.
At my dad's funeral, I remember this like it was yesterday. My uncle reached in my dad's casket and adjusted his tie.
Wow.
I can't tell you why that was the first memory I had at that particular moment, but that's the first memory that I had when she told me that he did it.
Because you finally get to hear it from out of her mouth.
And she further went on to tell me, your uncle did it. I don't know why he did it.
Oh.
And that was very alarming for me. And simultaneously, Cherie, my doorbell rings. So my mom's turned and she looked at me and said, I wasn't there. Your uncle was there. And I invited him over as well.
What?
Yes.
So she didn't tell you, didn't invite your uncle. You asked her to come over and talk to you, and she decided to bring him without telling you.
Yes.
So when you opened the door for him,
so I got up and I opened the door. I let my uncle in. We all sat in my living room, and my uncle he jumped right into it. He was like, nephew, this is something I've been wanting to tell you for a long time. Your mama didn't want me to tell you. I wanted to tell you when you turned 18. You went off to the Navy. Your mom did not want me to tell you then. So even when you returned, I wanted to tell you. And your mom didn't want to tell me. Your mom did not want me to tell you. And he said all this in front of her. So I know that to be true.
Yeah.
And I definitely have to give him credit for even wanting to tell me. So he jumped into the story of his version of what happened.
So your mom never told you anything prior to him getting there. She didn't have a chance. The doorbell rang. He gets there. He jumps right in. What does your mom say when he actually says, I wanted to tell you, but it was her decision not to tell you?
She said nothing. And that's how I can really believe it was conversation where he wanted me to know this sooner than that particular night.
Okay. So the conversation goes on. Does he tell you exactly what happened, or does your mom begin to tell you? Or do they even tell you exactly what happened? Or how does that conversation continue?
So what happens is my uncle give me his version of what happened, but it's very generic. Basically what he tell me, it was a party that particular Saturday night. Mm-hmm. He bumped into my mom at the party. Now, all of us sitting down talking. This conversation, us three is having this conversation, and my uncle speaking.
Okay.
He met my mom. He saw her at the party, and she pulled him to the side and said, hey, Leonard did not want me to come to this party, and I'm afraid to go home. So my uncle tell me he pretty much just brushed it off that particular time. But later on in the party, she pulled him aside again. Hey, listen, I'm afraid to go home. I think he's going to harm me when I go home. So at that particular time, my uncle tell me that he confronted my dad. There's changed words. He alleged that my dad had a gun. He had a gun. And he alleged that he shot my dad. No details. That's pretty much all he told me at that particular moment.
So he went to the house. Your dad was already home. Or he didn't even say. He just said he approached your dad. Did he go to the house? Was he waiting at the house for your father?
So at that particular time, I didn't know of a location of what it had happened. It was just really generic. And I can, thinking back now, I can tell you that's the second time I was paralyzed because I'm hearing this and I had no question at the time. I had nothing to say because it was very paralyzing just to hear that. Here's the guy who have raised me. Here's the guy who have been at all my school functions, have been at all sporting events. So I remember just thinking, like, as they talk and I'm hearing them, but it's like, so this relationship that you developed with me, was it genuine?
Right. What was your mom saying? Did she back up what he was saying about she thought your father was going to hurt her?
I think my mom, as I think back, she said in a removed place. So she was there for that first conversation, but she really wasn't there. So that's the initial story that was given to me. And thinking back, hindsight, I wish I would ask the million question then, because that's going to be the only time I was able to get them to sit down with me.
Right. But when your mom came over, if you can just imagine, because the last thing you wanted to hear was the uncle that raised you. In your mind, did you have any idea of what she was going to say? Did you think your mom had done it? Like, what did you think had happened that she was going to tell you rather?
I had no idea what had happened. I didn't. I just felt as if what he was telling me wasn't true. I had no idea what had happened. If I'm being totally honest, I had no thoughts. When I tell you I was numb, I didn't know what to think.
So when the uncle finally tells you his part, your mom just sits there, pretty much let him tell the story. He continues to just be the person of interest throughout this whole story. It sounds like. What was it? What did you feel like? Did you have anything to say to your mom or your uncle? Did you ever say, why didn't you want him to tell me at 18? Or this is where you just felt paralyzed? Exactly.
So that's what I wondered, but I didn't have the courage at the time to say all of these things. And another thing that my mom said that was very, very alarming, after my uncle gave me his initial version of what happened, my mom stated, I knew nothing about what had happened until 2 weeks after my dad had been buried.
Okay.
That particular statement really, for me, it confirmed that something wasn't right. I just couldn't imagine no situation where a brother could murder a sister's kid's father, and a discussion don't happen till 2 weeks after he's buried.
Yeah, you don't know where he is for 2 weeks. You don't hear from him or anything, and then you find out your brother did this, and then there's no turning into the police, nothing, no concern or consideration about her kids, how they're going to live after this, and then to keep it a secret from you. So are you the only child? Well, these are your other siblings also, right? So how many kids does your father have altogether?
Right. So with my mom, it's 4 of us. I have an older sister, as I said, older brother, and another sister.
Right.
All older. I'm the youngest. My dad is only my dad. All of them have the same father.
Okay.
So it's only my dad. I'm the youngest. He's only my dad. Now, here's a man who stepped in, took care of them as well. And my dad was such a good dude. He even gave their father a job at his construction site. Wow. And I have to say this, Cherie. Prior to this night of me prior to me being told that my uncle murdered my dad, I was always told how much of an amazing person my dad was.
Wow.
And now for the first time, I'm hearing that my mom was afraid to go home. Never heard anything about any violence, never seen any violence in my home. In my memories of my dad, it just didn't fit his character. Always an upbeat guy. So it was just very, very, very alarming. And here again, I'm being fed a lot of information that I just don't know what to do with right now.
Yeah. Now, in this conversation, Antonio, I read somewhere did your siblings, well, to your remembrance, you're only 8. They're older than you. But do you remember them just not liking your father? Because I read that they had a part in this as well. So did they just not like your father at all?
again, another interesting part. Prior to that particular night, my dad was always put on a pedestal. He was the best father in the world. They always gave him kudos for stepping in, taking care of them. They pride themselves on calling him dad. And even like up until recently, all of them would refer to him as dad.
Wow.
So it was just so mind-boggling as everything unfolded.
So did your uncle tell you everything as far as how your siblings played a part in this that day when he unfolded?
Not at that particular moment, because keep in mind, I got a generic story. I became paralyzed again, and time went by. So what ended up happening, I ended up having conversation with my mom after that day, because it just wasn't sitting right with me. So I started having conversation, asking my mom, like, hey, Mom, what happened? Like, where was it? I started asking different questions.
Okay.
And my mom's response was always, and if I'm being honest, not as if I was bothering her. She was ready to be done with it.
Yeah.
She didn't want to offer much. And my uncle, on the flip side, when I go to him, he would have conversations with me. The story just would change every time we had the conversation.
Yeah.
So I had my mom, who would very rarely tell me anything, and my uncle, who would tell me everything, but it just kept changing as it went along. So as the years went along, I became more and more suspicious of what really happened.
Well, why though, Antonio? So after you sat down with your uncle and he decided, and your mom, you're both there in the place, and she's saying, I'm going to tell you the truth, and she invited the uncle over so that you can get everything. This is a man that raised you, played a father figure. Your mom was there. You had a good life outside of this. And he's telling you everything that happened, and he's telling you your mom didn't want you to know, so for whatever reason, right? You believed them in that moment because you were shocked, but you believed what they were saying because you trusted them, right?
I always, I had to believe that he did it. I never believed the why. I think even just the why was the thing that kept me going. And knowing everything I know now, I was grieving. And grieving is a process.
Yeah.
And I don't think I properly allowed myself to grieve the right way going through it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to ask the right question initially.
Right.
I didn't know what to ask, because these are people that have raised me that I trusted. So to hear this and to know that everybody knew but me was very mind-boggling for me.
So, no, I can totally understand that. I can understand why it took you so long to process this, because you knew for a while before you began to jump into it. So after you learned that from mom and uncle, but it's still processing in your mind, a few years go on more. Life happens for you before you still actually go into the why that's bothering you in the back of your head.
Yes.
You talked about having the right people by your side, and when you're going through stuff, it's just why you hesitated in the beginning of knowing. Now you know this. You remarried. Well, you're already on the police force, so now you're divorced already.
Yes.
And you meet Margot.
Yes.
Who plays an intricate part in this story, and we're going to bring her on to actually talk more, because this is where, after meeting Margot, you begin to do more, right?
Yes. So from the first day that I was told, the night I was told who murdered my dad.
Yeah.
Like you said, I was in another marriage at that time. So through the grieving process of me finding out in the couple of years that went by, I did go through a divorce.
Okay.
I know I was grieving. I know I was paralyzed. I know I didn't have the support to do the things I needed to do. So after going through a divorce, meeting Margot, and even before me and Margot got married, we had such a good friendship and a good connection as friends. Funny enough, I did to Margot what they did to me. Meaning is, I told her part of the story, and I was very generic with her.
Okay.
And that was her introduction to what had went on. I pretty much just told her that my dad got murdered by my uncle. They had changed some words, something with my mom, and that's what happened. And that's how she learned of the story.
Okay.
And it was just very, very, very generic.
Did she ask you, like, she started drilling you with questions? Like,
Actually, she did not. She just found a way to just support me where I was. So she didn't push or pull. She just supported me where I was.
Wow.
And I guess just thinking back, they taught me how to minimize what I had went through.
Yeah.
And knowing it today, I can identify it today, but then I just couldn't.
Wow. We're gonna go deeper, but I want to bring Margot on because she plays an intricate part in what happens in this next part of this journey. So can we get Margot? Welcome, Margot.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me tell this story with you and Antonio.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I know it's not a easy conversation for us to have or a journey to go back down, but I'm hearing that you played an intricate part into this journey with Antonio as he went on to unfold some things. So as a woman, I have to know, when you met Antonio and he talked about how he gave you he told you the story about what he was going through generically. Mm-hmm. But as a girlfriend, and then how did you feel when he told you that much as a girlfriend?
Well, at the time, Antonio and I, we were friends at that time, real good friends at that point. My heart broke like in a million pieces initially. Sometimes, and I don't know if it's like just my past training with law enforcement or whatever, but sometimes I do have the ability to keep a face or straight enough face to get through certain conversations. Mm-hmm. But my heart just broke like in a million pieces. I had a lot of questions, but I couldn't imagine. I didn't know what to think. It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot, yeah.
And that was just the generic watered down part.
Yeah.
You hadn't even told her everything. Mm-hmm. So as life goes on, and then you go from friends with benefits, girlfriend, mm-hmm. and then this man decides to ask you to marry him. Mm-hmm. Even knowing all of that, you still said yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. Because Tonio, he's my best friend. So for me, I understand life is going to have challenges, right? Mm-hmm. But why not do it with the person that you love the most? Why not do it with your best friend? But it was something that I did think about because mm-hmm. I understood that this happened, right? But honestly, at that time, Cherie, I didn't think Tonio was going to do anything about it because I felt like he had been holding it for so long and he knew about it. I didn't think he was going to do anything about it because his uncle still, at the time when I met Antonio, his mm-hmm. uncle was very prevalent in our lives, you know? Wow. So it was one of those things where it was like, I didn't even know what to do with it either.
Yeah.
So the uncle was still involved in...
Yeah, he was still involved. He'll still cook. He cooked one time for my birthday, barbecued, and we would go to his house for holidays. So it was a family situation.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think what happened is when you experience trauma and you don't get the necessary help, you have a trauma response. Mm-hmm. And what I realized today, it's like crystal clear today. That was my trauma response. I pushed everything to the back of my mind and I just pushed forward like nothing happened. Mm-hmm. But as I'm going on a journey of healing.
Yeah. So now you're with Margot and you're finding a safe place.
I'm healing now. I'm growing as a man. And at this time, to Margot, she helped me. She pushed me to go to therapy because I wasn't showing up the way I wanted to show up in our marriage. Okay. I was moody. I know I had trust issues, not necessarily trust issues if Margo gonna go be with somebody, but just trusting her support level for me for what I've been through.
Right.
So it was a very, very, very trying time. But as I started to heal mm-hmm. and become a better person and a better man, now I'm getting the confidence. Now I got questions. Yeah. I'm healing. So my grieving process was long. Yeah. In my mind, it was very long. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy I gave myself the space to grieve at my pace.
Yeah. So, Margot, what was happening when you decided? Well, when you realized you need to get some therapy because it's bleeding. You're bleeding on me now.
Right. So initially, I didn't know what because keep in mind, it was just a generic story that he told me, and I felt like, hey, you've been working with this, living with this all this time. So, so in my mind, I didn't think that that was the catalyst for everything initially. You know, I just felt like you're in a new marriage. This is a new situation. You know, you got to get to know who I am. I got to get to know who you are. So initially, that was my thought. The issue that he was burying within and holding on to, I had no idea that that was the catalyst for his, you know, reactions to stuff and how he was behaving.
And that's the good thing about therapy. Therapy will push things out of you that you didn't even know what was in you.
Yeah.
So like Margot say, initially it wasn't an issue, but under the surface is there.
It was there.
Yes.
So as I'm going on my healing process, it's surfacing up now.
Yeah.
Right.
I was blessed with amazing therapists that really
Helped you get under there.
went deep with me. So now as it's surfing, I have to deal with it.
You got to deal with it.
Now I got questions.
And you got a partner, a friend, right? A safe space.
Yes, and I want to tell everybody, don't ever underestimate the value of people that stand in the paint for you, and people that pray for you, cover you, be there for you. Don't ever underestimate that. It's probably the most valuable thing you can have, and especially in a relationship, in a marriage, is somebody that's just gonna stand in the paint with you.
I'm telling you. So you're in this thing now, Margot. You guys are married now. You've dated. You're married. You're having the problems. You're getting counseling. You realize you're healing. You know where the attitudes and the issues are coming from. You're sharing it with Margot. At what point? What was it that made you decide to dig deeper and ask more questions about your father?
Yeah. So I was having two experiences with my uncle and my mother about this particular situation. The craziest thing, I never could get them to sit down again, ever. Every time I tried, every last one of them, they had an excuse for why they couldn't do it. Neither one of them had a problem with talking to me separately, but they would never sit down and talk to me together again. And I realized that. So what I did was I had questions for my mom. I went to my mom. Mom, what happened? Well, where was it? What happened? And her whole thing, and she stood on it. I wasn't there. I did not find out until 2 weeks after your dad was buried. If you have questions, ask your uncle. He was there. I don't know. That's the stand she took.
Right.
And I went to my uncle, and I remember he finally opened up, and he started telling me more. So keep in mind, now I can ask questions.
Yeah.
I know what question to ask.
Yeah. So you definitely had enough time to process.
Yeah. So the main question I asked, what is happening? Where happened at?
Yeah.
So my uncle, he took me on the journey again. He told me the whole situation about the party. But now what's the add-on? He told me that he confronted my dad at our residence. I never knew where it happened at.
Okay, that was the missing piece in the original.
That was the missing piece. So he tell me he got to our residence, and what he said was someone opened the door for him, and my dad was on the sofa halfway asleep. Now he told me somebody opened the door for him, which means my dad didn't open the door for him. So sometimes when you allow people to talk and you listen, you really hear things that you never, you really hear them. So I put a bookmark in that part. I did. So somebody opened the door. So I let him keep going. Someone opened the door, and my dad was on the sofa halfway asleep. And he said, my dad looked up at him. This is Virgin. What you doing here? He told my dad, hey, I didn't come here for any trouble. I just want to make sure everything is good with you and my sister.
Yeah.
He said, my dad told him, this is his word. Don't worry about it. This is my house. Everything's going to be okay. That's what he said my dad told him. He then went on and told me the conversation kind of went left, as he say. He said it was they exchanged some words. He said my dad had a gun. He had a gun. And he say he felt as my dad was gonna harm him at that time. So he said he shot and killed my dad. After he shot my dad, he told me then that he reached out to one of his closest friends, and he came and he helped my uncle put my dad in the car, and they went and dropped him off somewhere. Now, he told me that he panicked, and he went and dropped my dad off, And he told me that he also took my dad ID. And he said he don't know why he did it, but he told me that he took my dad ID. So I'm just letting him talk. And the most alarming thing that he told me that my siblings, when he went and dropped my dad off, my siblings stayed behind and cleaned up the scene. I can't even tell you how I felt when I heard that. First of all, like my heart in that moment immediately went out to my siblings for the position that they was put in. I think that's what's the start of me really wanting to get justice for my dad and really get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Because I started to realize it's so many more moving parts to this.
Yeah.
And being that he told me that my siblings was left behind to clean, it totally debunked my mom not knowing what happened to my dad 2 weeks after.
For 2 weeks.
It's no way your kids. So my oldest sister at the time.
How old was your sister at the time? The oldest one?
18.
She was 18. Okay. And the your brother was still
he was 16 at the time. And I had a cousin that they say was at the resident that also helped as well. And she was about 18 at the time as well. Just a unfortunate situation all the way around. But just thinking, I remember hearing that conversation from him. I know that was the start of, I guess you could say like the real distrust of my mom, and just really wanting to know what really happened, because it's no way that you did not know until 2 weeks if that was the case.
And how close were you to your sibling, your siblings, your brother even? You were 8. You were in the house when this happened as well, but
Yes.
you didn't hear any of the commotion or anything.
Correct.
So as life went on all these years later, your siblings never even told you. I can understand the 18-year-old sister being told, let's not say anything. But the brother being 15 and then you had another cousin there, nobody ever mentioned anything to you?
Nothing. Nothing. It was a total shock.
Like it
Total
never
shock.
happened.
And what I can say is they're traumatized.
I can imagine what they had to go through. I mean, my first thought is, oh, they was in on it too. But when to hear you say, like, my heart went out to them because they were kids. They were put in this situation.
Correct.
And to actually clean up the blood of your father, the man who feeds you every day, to clean up the blood and then have to not say anything.
Correct. Again, my heart go out to them. It's not a day go by that I don't pray for them, and because it still affect them to this day.
I can imagine. Had you saw it at 8 years old, had you been a part of that, I can imagine what life would have been like, could have only been like for you.
I'm so grateful to God I wasn't a part of it at all.
To see that. So your uncle tells you everything, what happened. He opened the door, shot your father. A friend helped him. The siblings cleaned it up. Now your wheels are turning, because just like Mom, you are just a habitual liar. Nothing that you're saying, and now you just don't want to say anything. You're telling me to go ask him. So now you go back and you're telling Margot everything that you're learning as well. So at what point do you say, I gotta go further? Did y'all have the conversation and say, let's order the police report?
Well, I think what happened that really, really prompted, for whatever reason, the conversation I had with my uncle, I wanted my mom to have that conversation with me. I can't tell you why, but I wanted to hear it from her. And I just never could get it from her. So what I did was, when I got that big part of what possibly happened from my uncle, I took it to my mom.
Okay.
Mom, like, so tell me what happened. I wasn't there. So I told her the version that my uncle told me. So she said, yeah, I did learn of that happen. I said, so if it happened in your living room, how did you not know? Anyone that knows my mom is a very tidy woman. Her house is immaculate.
Right.
And that's the first thing I thought about. If keep in mind, I'm a police. I know what happens. I know what a murder scene looked like. It's no way that you didn't know. And so for me, that was the burning part. Just me wanting my mom to be honest with me. And I think that's what really drove me.
That's what drove.
Because I wanted my mom to be honest with me. I wanted to feel like I can trust my mom.
Wow.
And I never got that opportunity to be able to fully trust her as it relates to this.
And honestly, like as his wife, it was tough to watch him take that ride. Because it's just one of those things where I couldn't comfort him because I didn't cause the problem. However, I was, there for him to support him, but it was a tough space.
Yeah.
And there was even a time that I reached out to his mom to try to, because I saw him coming to a breaking point.
Oh, wow.
Like I had saw him, he had started showing up different, and I saw like that warrior in him starting to rise. And for me, I understood that they're running out of time. They're running out of time to tell him the truth. And so just as a mother, I definitely tried to reach out, and just to tell her, just as his wife, like, listen, just tell him whatever you know, because I think that he was honestly at a place where he didn't want to put anybody in trouble or anything. He wanted to, his thing was, I need to know what happened. I need to know the truth. And I think that's what it just took him over.
Did she keep telling you the same thing, Margot? Like, I wasn't there. I don't know.
Well, she and I never had the conversation.
Okay.
At the time when I called, she didn't answer. But he was having the conversations because, it was his situation, to deal with. So, but I knew that he was coming to a breaking point. I saw it.
And like Margo was saying, like the warrior was showing up, but I actually think it was the healing part of me that was showing up. And I encourage anybody to get the healing you need, because once you get the healing, with healing come courage.
Oh yes.
And I think that was the biggest part for me, and I'm thankful that she pushed me to go get healing, because it empowered me forward. You
wouldn't have been able to do this without that healing,
no way.
And that therapy.
There's no way. And even to this day, this is very difficult to sit in, to talk about, to digest.
Yeah.
But I feel so free today.
I'm glad. I'm happy that you are free and able to speak. And Margot, that partnership, that union rather, is what helped push you to that point. So at that point, now that you got what you needed from your uncle, because you wasn't getting it from your mother, but now like Margot said, the warrior is coming out, and you say the healing, that courage is coming out. Is this the point? Is this the very thing that made you say, I want the police report? I want to go further.
Yes, I think that is the moment, because I wanted to believe my mom. I just wanted to believe that she just wouldn't keep telling me something that's not true. I wanted to believe that. So I said, I have to get this police report.
What made you believe the uncle more than your mom? Is it because even though his stories kept changing every time he told you something?
So it's not so much I was believing him, but he was the only one talking. So if you talking to me, Cherie, and someone else is not talking, your voice louder.
Got you. Got it.
And some of the things that he told me that she could confirm, she even confirmed that it happened in her living room. So it happened in your living room, and you finding out 2 weeks later, that's not
makes sense.
It makes no sense. It's happening in your living room in the way you keep your house clean. It doesn't make sense. And if I'm totally honest, Cherie, when I think back, I remember us moving right after my dad passed away.
Because I can't see how babies are cleaning up a whole crime scene anyway, and nobody know.
We ended up moving. And the craziest thing about this, my uncle ended up moving in with us right after my father was murdered as well. So now things, as he telling me, I'm starting to recall things. Because keep in mind, once you heal, things start getting unlocked. You start remembering things. So after speaking with my uncle and still not being able to get what I felt was more of a truth from my mom.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I ordered a police report in hopes of what my mom was telling me was right. I felt like I'm going to get this report. I'm going to read. My mama didn't know. Everybody else lying. She can't be lying.
And the police report said?
Boy, was I wrong. So we did order the police report. And at the time, I've been to police now more than 10 years, coming up on 10 years. I'm good at this. Grabbed the report. And the first thing that was really alarming to me about the report was my mom in the report. My mom statement, she spoke with the detective. She never told the detective where it happened at, which means she altered the investigation off top.
Yeah.
The seed she planted was, and this according directly to her statement, she was aware that my dad was having an affair with another man's wife, and the man found out about it, and she thinks this particular man murdered my father.
Oh.
So the particular detective, he went directly with that.
Oh my goodness.
And when we ordered the police report, keep in mind my dad was he was dumped in a neighborhood, so it appeared that he had been robbed.
Okay. Did the police report, so where the body was found, how far is that from your house?
Okay, so where my dad's body was found at is probably a 10-minute ride from our house. But what was very unique about the location, it's the same location where my dad ran his gambling houses at. So it was very intentional to drop him in that particular area. And so to say he was robbed, my dad had more than $300 in his pocket, and this all in the police report. And to my uncle's point, my dad didn't have ID. So he took the ID to get himself time, because knowing what I know, people have to identify people with the ID.
Yeah.
The funny part about him taking the ID and identifying my dad, my mom went out to the morgue and she identified my dad before they put the information out.
Wait, so
Which
before they call her in for a statement, for the police report, for her statement, she already had went to identify your father.
Before they even contacted the family and identified him.
So my dad was killed in the wee hours of Saturday night leading into Sunday morning. Monday morning, my mom go down. All of this is in the police report. All of it's in the police report. She goes down, and the medical examiner, even in his statement, he was surprised someone came down there because they haven't went through the identifying process of my dad.
Right.
So,
which defeated the purpose of the uncle taking the ID, because she wouldn't have identified him anyways.
Correct. So
she made up a story and said that basically she misled, because there really wasn't. This case went cold. It really wasn't an investigation. And it was because your mother really misled them and had them thinking one route, that it could have been his mistress husband that killed him. And since the body was found in a gambling site, this is where the man would have known to go look for him anyway, because this is where he hangs out. This is where he's at. So yeah. It was all intentional, definitely.
It was, and the police report was just the tip of the iceberg of us understanding that this was more sinister than what they had told us. So as I'm diving into the police report, it was reported of a gun. Someone heard a gunshot that particular night as well. So what I realized was, on top of shooting my dad in the living room and transport him somewhere to dump him, he was also shot again at the dump location.
Now, Antonio, you talked about the pictures. One thing hearing your uncle say one thing and your mom, but it was the pictures that really drove you to say, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. My dad doesn't deserve this. So what in the pictures, because me, myself, when I think about it, I can see, I saw a picture of your dad sitting on that couch and he was holding you in his lap as a little boy. And then to see the gunshot wounds to his head and to see his body laying in the grass and to know more that you found out. I mean, I'm not attached to it, but just the visualization, the pictures that I saw. So what was it like when you went through the pictures with, now you have the detectives?
Yeah, so once we made the call, like I say, God would have it, Atlanta send they two best. I met with both detectives, and we sat down and we went through the pictures frame by frame, because we had to come up with our game plan. And when I tell you the pictures are they're vivid, they very vivid photos. We got to one of the photos and we kind of saw like a partial handprint. My dad had on white pants.
Right.
We saw like a partial bloody handprint on his pants. We felt that particular, I'll say, clue. What was a good way to come up with a game plan to reopen the investigation, if you will.
And what was the game plan? That this is what you and the detectives, after walking through this, what was the game plan?
So the first game plan was, because it had happened so long ago, we realized we had to get a confession from my uncle. We had to get him on a recording. So the detectives, they told me, man, you're going to have to wire up. You're going to have to wear a wire, and you're going to have this conversation with your uncle.
Wow.
I told him, y'all got to give me a day to think about it. I had to sleep on it. I told him, let me think about this.
Right.
And so I reached back out to him the next day. I said, let's move forward. It was no turning back for me at that particular moment. After seeing those pictures, it was no turning back, Sheree. It was no turning back. So we formed the game plan. So the initial game plan was to get him on tape. On tape. So we set it up. They put a recording in one of my shirts. It was a Sunday morning, and I told my uncle. I called him like the week before. Hey, Sunday, I'm going to come by. We need to have a conversation. Right. I know we don't talked about this before, but we just need to have this conversation one more time. So that was on the Sunday that I was supposed to went and meet with him. Yeah. That Friday, the other part of our game plan was to get my mom to admit on a phone recording that my uncle had done it as well. Now, at this time, the police, my family don't know the case is reopened. They haven't reached out to nobody in my family yet. Okay. So we decided to work it this way first. So that particular Friday, I got my mom on the phone call. I called her. Mom, I just really need to have this conversation with you one more time. Yeah. And she stated that your uncle shot your dad. She stated that on the phone conversation as well. Oh. So that was one piece that we needed. The next piece we needed my uncle to admit he did it on tape. So that particular Sunday, went to his house. Me and my uncle, we went out to his garage, and we had the conversation. He told me everything that he had told me once before. He showed up at the residence. Someone opened the door for him. My dad was on the sofa. They had changed words. He ended up killing my dad. He said it all on tape. Wow. At that particular moment, that's all the detective needed to really move forward with getting justice for my dad.
Now, Antonio and Margot, after agreeing to this game plan, and I know that it was a matter of, it's no turning back, we got to do this. But after agreeing to this game plan to be wired, to get your mom on a recorded line, at any point did you think that the repercussions from the uncle? Like, once this actually came, do you think that somebody would come after you? Or I mean, your mom being the mastermind, do you think that she would even possibility of setting you up?
I could be honest. I ain't trust nobody. Just in their fact, after going through the whole investigation with Antonio and seeing what they did to his dad. Yeah. I still don't trust nobody. Yeah. Yeah, that was tough. And we did think that maybe somebody will try to harm us at some point because we had a lot of information that we were getting ready to solve this over 30-year cold case file. But you know what, Cherie? The courage. Yeah. Wow. At this point, we were on a mission. Yeah. You know, Antonio's dad, life was innocently taken. And for us, we just had a different, it meant something different at this point.
Yeah. And I can say I've never operated in fear. That has never been my thing, to operate in fear. Was it there? What was potential for danger there? Absolutely. is a risk they take trying to harm me as well.
Yeah, I know that's
And
right.
that's who I am. You take a risk, and I'm okay with that.
And also too, during that time, you know, our mindset, you know, Antonio and I were both cops
Yeah,
at
okay.
that time. So for us, reading the reports, making sense of it, putting a story together, understanding we need a game plan, how we're going to do this, doing the recordings, stuff like that. That's what we did for work.
For a living, yeah. So it's normal for you all.
Yeah. So for us, our thing was we just doing this for justice, for a personal cause, but we were passionate about it. It wasn't easy, but it was just it had to be done.
Yeah.
It had to be done.
Yeah.
So you get we get the recording. You managed to get through that. At what point does the detectives let the family know, like, the investigation is open?
Yeah.
And how?
Yeah. Again, we're super blessed. Atlanta sent the best they had.
Yeah.
So part of the game plan, once we get the confessions on the phone and the tape, then he reached out to my mom.
Okay.
Hey, Miss Taylor, we just want you to know we're reopening your husband's investigation to his murder trial. You remember the photo I told you about, the bloody handprint?
Right.
What he stated to my mom, hey, is a partial handprint that was on Mr. Hill's pants. We in the process of trying to get it identified, and we'll let you guys know if we come up with something. We have it's new stuff now. So we taking from 88 now. We're in 2016, 17 now. So a lot of stuff have changed.
Technology has advanced.
Correct. So made the call to my mom. My mom didn't call me when the police initially called her. Okay. Now I knew this was going on, and so what they did simultaneously within the same day, they reached out to my oldest sister.
Okay.
Asked her for a statement. So asked my brother for a statement. Reached out to the uncle. Asked everybody for a statement.
Okay.
Everybody pretty much denied everything, but everybody I can tell was afraid, because I ended up getting a phone call from my uncle. Hey, I really don't know what's going on. I'm probably gonna have to get me an attorney. The detectives reached out. So my thing, like, wow, okay, cool, man. I'm here to support you, because it's game planning at this particular time. So me and Margot, we understood that it was about to go down.
Yeah.
So we took all the precaution that we need to do just to make sure we're safe and do the things that we need to do. It was very nerve-wracking, because everyone know where I live, and I get it, and I understand. But again, I wasn't going to do anything fearful. I just wasn't going to do it fearful.
Oh, so we are deep into the investigation. We got statements from the siblings. When do we go to trial? This all actually happened in a pretty short time after reading the police report. This was like...
It was probably about so from the time it started to the time they made the initial arrest, about 4 months probably.
4 months. Mm-hmm. And they arrested... Now what? They arrested the uncle.
Yes.
Your mom was never arrested.
Yes. So my uncle was arrested, and if I'm totally honest, I asked the district attorney not to go after my mom under no circumstances, and they agreed. My mom at the time was dealing with a terminal illness, which I did not see no scenario where I wanted to push for her to be in jail. I just couldn't see a scenario, and I can't explain that to this day. I stand on my decision because I understand what she was already dealing with and going through. So that's a decision that I made, and I'm grateful for Fulton County District DA office for obliging that for me. I'm still grateful for that, because this was never for me for harming anyone. It was always for closure and to glorify my father, and understanding now to make sure his family got the closure they need, because they deserved it as well.
But your mom is the one who did it to him, Antonio.
I understand. I do understand that, and I definitely believe she have lived every day understanding that.
Because she was,
without a doubt, I know she lived every day thinking about the decision that she made.
And also too, Antonio's uncle never implemented his mom. He protected her to the door,
time.
even in court. He never once implemented her. He never once said, my sister made me do it.
I'm happy you made that point, Margot, because I definitely want to say that my uncle several times said my mom didn't make him do it.
Wow.
And that's something that is important that I do say that. He said that several times. So I have to live with the fact I know who. I may have never know why.
Right.
I may have never know why.
Okay, so after they opened up the investigation and then they made the arrest for the uncle, they called us. It was like, hey, we picked him up this morning, so we were aware. So, of course, Antonio and I, because we know that everybody else don't know what's going on, but we understand what's happening. We went out for lunch. So we're sitting out having lunch at this spot. And, we're like, okay, eventually, we know we're going to have to talk to your dad's family. Because keep in mind, Antonio's dad's family knew none of this was happening.
Oh, right.
And as we're sitting eating lunch, it's about 4:00 and the 5:00 news preview comes up on the screen on the TV and says 5:00 news, over 30-year-old cold case, solved, the arrest made. And so Antonio and I, we look at each other and we're like, oh my God, your father's family is going to see this on the news and we haven't told nobody what happened.
Oh, wow.
So we immediately closed out our bill. We jumped in a car and we headed over to, I guess his closest uncle house that we can get to. Antonio made the call and told him we were pulling up. We were minutes away. And we ended up having to go to Antonio's father's family and his uncle Joe and his aunt's house to at least tell one person that, listen, guys, I know this is a lot, but this is coming on the news. They made an arrest, so Antonio went into his whole spiel and told them what we had did and what had happened and things of that sort. And that was a real turning point for us because that's when Antonio's dad family got involved.
Did they at any point tell you that they had any idea of what really happened, or did they say we always wondered? Or
so my uncle, it was actually a lot of tension with my uncle and some people on my mom's side. He always felt something. He didn't know what. I think all of them kind of felt something, but didn't know. And it's funny what me and Margot learned that day. My auntie was like, wow. Because my auntie and my mom was very close prior to this happening. And my auntie was like, your mom told us when you became a cop, you was going to solve your daddy murder. The irony.
Oh, wow.
The irony. So through her sarcasm, God showed up.
Yep. She manifested.
She spoke.
Didn't even know.
She spoke it.
Yeah. She didn't even know. But when you're sitting when you're guilty and and then you join the police force, I'm sure that's all that probably was her dream every night she laid down. She could not. She was probably waiting on the day that this boy come and tell me that he killed his father. Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments where you just say, but God.
Absolutely.
It's just one of those moments.
So there was already tension. So what was the reaction from the family?
Oh, man.
His uncle was broken. Yeah. When I say he cried and he cried and he cried, it was just he was so broken because he didn't know and he said immediately, he was like, my brother was a good man. He said for all of these years, we couldn't think of nobody that would ever have wanted to do that to him. We couldn't have thought, we wrecked our brains. We tried to think about it. He did everything for everybody. He would give people jobs, give people money. He helped people in the community, and their whole thing was for all of this time. Yeah. We just couldn't understand what happened.
And there's also, we had realized that particular day that other rumors had been spread as if, my uncle was actually feuding with one of his brother-in-law because they had told him that he possibly did it. Oh. So that was his wife's brother. So him and his wife were going through things because he thinking her brother had something to do with it. Because our family was always close knit and double dip with each other. Wow. That's just what it was. So it's a lot of stuff that we found out, but through that, I became so much more closer to my dad's family. Yeah. Because they supported me like no other in that moment. Bet. They really did. They showed up.
I bet. Wow. So So now we're getting it. We told the family, and I'm glad you stopped there. It comes out on the news in public while you guys are sitting out. You have to go tell somebody.
Right.
So you tell the family who've been left in the dark this whole time about everything. And now we go to trial.
Well, before we go to trial, that particular day, it's funny. Well, it's serious, I say.
Yeah.
I lost a family and reconnected with a family that same day because the day my uncle got arrested and during his confession, they had to let him know they played the tape. So at that particular moment, all gloves off.
Yeah.
He realized that I had recorded him. Yeah. Now the family know. So that particular day was the day I lost that side of the family. But the way God would have it, he reintroduced me to the other side of the family.
He gave you another one. I have to.
So how could I complain?
You can't. I have to believe that your uncle knew, and your mom almost. I gotta believe that they knew something was about to happen. The conversations, I almost feel like the day that the wire conversation happened.
To your point, I will say the day my uncle got recorded, that was the hardest I had to work to have the conversation with him. And I know he knew something that particular day, but he told me because I think so much had went on and so much time had went on.
Yeah.
I think they felt as if they had manipulated me enough that I would remain quiet.
Be quiet, yeah.
The photos would not allow me to remain quiet. My dad did not deserve that.
One part I don't think it came out. We talked about your siblings cleaned up the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
When you requested the DA not to arrest your mom, did you also request that they not bother your siblings?
So from a legal standpoint, too much time had passed.
Okay.
So from a legal standpoint, that wasn't even an option. And that is not something that I would have stood for either. My sibling was victimized. They was victims. My prayer is that they stop being victims and get help. That's my prayer for them today. And I hope they see this.
Yeah, just looking at from the outside looking in, there were so many people responsible for this. But we only went after one. And this one was arrested. But even this one, to your point, never put the story on anybody else. When the trial starts, did you ever take the stand?
Oh, wow. So the trial was very, very, very heavy. I was the state's main witness. I stayed on the stand for 2 days. So to have to go to court every day, walk past people that you grew up with, shared clothes with, shared meals with, and them not even acknowledge or speak to you, it was hard. It was hard. I get it. I respect it and I understand it. Understanding now, everybody had to pick a side. That was my dad and my family. They stood with their family. So for me, it was just clear. That's their family. This is my family.
But you were their family.
Yeah. That is true. I stand for what's right. Everybody can't do that. And if me choosing right calls you not to choose me, I'm okay with whatever choice you make.
Yeah.
So I think, again, with family secrets, it put people in position to pick sides.
Good point.
And my dad was my family.
Yeah.
My uncle was their family.
It's their family.
I gotta respect it. Gotta respect it. Do it make sense? No. But I gotta respect it.
So you take the stand 2 days. You said 2 days, the entire trial, you get on the stand. Is this before or after? Did your uncle take the stand?
Yes. So I take the stands first. The states already go first. It's all a burden. Not only did my uncle take the stand, my mother took the stand.
Oh.
My older sister took the stand. My brother took the stand. So I had to sit here and watch this. And funny enough, at trial, it was alleged that my dad touched my sister This was never said before.
Oh my God.
This was never said before. So on top of not accepting responsibility, you start to try to tarnish the character of someone who's the real victim. The only victim in this really is my dad. Regardless of whatever, he did not deserve that.
Yeah.
So I had to sit through all that. At one point, my sister, and this was after the trial, my sister reached out to me and she basically told me that she was told to lie on stand about my daddy touching her. And I know she felt bad about it.
So when they were on the stand, Antonio, I was going to ask you about the stories that were told. We've heard multiple different stories. What else did you learn in the trial, sitting there, listening to all of them take the stand? Did anybody have the same story?
I think at that particular moment, I think they was coached the best that they can be coached. So you could tell they was coached, and you can tell they was coached by a poor coach. It just wasn't good. And the results were what they was.
So I'm sure in the trial there was exhibits, pictures, you having to relive this all over again. What was some of the things that you went through, or can you just describe to us what happened during the trial when it came to like exhibits and how you felt about it?
Yeah. Sitting watching the photos be put on the big screen was very hard. To this day, every time I look at those photos, I lose it. It's very hard to accept that people that I loved was capable of that. That was hard to accept. It really was, because it was very vivid. So the photos, to have to hear my family go up there and try to take my daddy apart when they never did that before. It was hard to hear. It really was. But I got it. And I actually expected it to happen.
Did your uncle at any time admit on the stand what he did, and what was the story that he said why? He'd already told you multiple stories. What story did he give when he was on the stand?
Yeah, he gave the story of someone opened the door. He came in. Him and my uncle had words, but this time on the stand, under pressure, he stated that it was only one gun, and he had to take the gun from my daddy and turn it and shoot him. So now it had became just one gun. So
self-defense.
Self-defense is what he tried to portray. It was a terrible case of self-defense, because he couldn't explain the burn mark, couldn't explain the second shot, and actually the friend that he was with,
right,
he ended up taking the stand. His testimony was the most powerful for me.
Why is that?
He told the truth. Everything he said lined up with the police report. And one thing he said was, my dad didn't deserve it. He knew eventually this day would come. And he said he never went with my uncle to drop my dad off. He said it was 3 people there when it happened. He said he was there, my uncle was there, and my brother was there. And he said he did not go with my uncle to drop my dad off, but somebody else did.
So he did, because the police report said that he was there, helped put the body in the car, and drove to dump the body, helped to put the body in the car. He's saying that he did not put the body in the car.
So the police report never said he went. My uncle said he went.
Right.
That was the story that was the story that my uncle was saying. His friend went with him, but his friend cleared it up. Hey, I showed up. It happened. And he was never offered a deal or anything. And his whole thing was, I was there when it happened. I helped him carry him to the car, and I let him know I wasn't doing no more than that. Leonard has been good to me. He was a good man. And he said it in the court. He didn't deserve that. He said it. And he also let me know, and this is a little bit of closure. He stated that the next day after my dad was murdered, it was a meeting that was held at my uncle's home. My mom was there. My grandmother was there. He was there. So those was the people there. So it's no way my mom didn't know 2 weeks after. Like,
Oh
I knew.
no.
So it was all divulged then.
So then, Antonio, then in the courtroom, then, because y'all talked about there was a shot where your father was dumped. So if the friend didn't go with them, then who shot your father? The brother?
I'm gonna be completely honest, because that's what this is all about. After my uncle got sentenced, I received a call from my uncle friend maybe 3 days after. I understand now his plan was to protect a 16-year-old young man and my brother.
Your uncle.
No, his friend. His friend
was.
That's why he said it was another person he never wanted to name my brother. And I understand that, because he understand a 16-year-old was a victim. He told me that it was told that second shot, my brother shot my dad the second time. Now, my dad was already deceased. So that was just a look over here shot. But my brother shot that shot with what was told to me. I'm only telling the truth and what was told to me.
Right. So that shot was just to alarm the neighbors. That's why
because when we were in court, we were wondering if you didn't go with him.
Yeah.
Who went?
So who went? Because he said in court, he was like, his body was so heavy. Like, it was details. They talked about how, because his uncle's friend wasn't there for the murder, but they called him to help with the body. So he had already went home for the evening, but they called him and he came back and learned that Antonio's father was killed. And they was like, we need to move the body. So his thing was,
This all I'm gonna do.
I help you take him downstairs, but this all I'm gonna do, because like I just don't want to be involved in it. But the questions were at court, well, when you took him downstairs, who helped y'all get the body down? Because that's heavy. Y'all took him down like two flights of stairs. He would never mention who the third person was, but he said it was 3 of them that took the body down to the car, but he wouldn't mention. He said, I forgot, I don't know who the third person was. And so that kind of raised suspicion, because we didn't know it was 3 people. We thought it was maybe the uncle and his friend.
Yeah.
And so he then called Antonio days after and was like, he needed to clear his conscience completely and give Tonio full closure.
And I appreciate him for that, because you don't always get to hear what you want to hear, but when it's the truth, you have to digest the truth.
So all this comes out in court, and still we just well, he wasn't offered a deal or anything either, even though he helped carry the body. He was a part of it, but still nothing was no charges were brought against him.
Correct, because we're looking at timing and all of that good stuff.
When you were on the stand, Antonio, tell us about that, when the 2 days that you personally had to take the stand.
So plenty of years of police and being on the stands, plenty of years of it. That was a different experience because it was personal.
Yeah.
So my emotion attached to it. It was very difficult. And like I say, the most difficult part of it was seeing the people that I consider family behave that way towards me. And again, I understand it and I respect it, but at the time it didn't feel good. And I think that was the hardest part for me about the whole court experience. But on the flip side of it, the support that I received from my dad's side of the family, the support I received from my wife, my kids, that was unmatched. And I remember when it was over, we got in the elevator after the guilty verdict. We got in the elevator and Margot just broke down.
Well, I was going to ask you, when we got the guilty verdict, what did we do?
Well, we weren't able, I wasn't in there for the verdict. Antonio was. It was limited access to the courtroom because of the responses of his Antonio's family when the uncle got found guilty. So the judge made a ruling that only, I think it was like Antonio and I
That was
stayed
for the sentencing.
for the sentencing. I was there for the ruling, but for the sentencing, they wouldn't let nobody in because all of that went on with the guilty verdict. So I decided to stay back and let Antonio's uncle go and stand with him.
Well, the guilty. But you were all in court when they announced that he was guilty.
Okay, so the guilty verdict.
What was the atmosphere?
It was very tense. It was quiet at first because everybody was just because we keep in mind we had waited like 4 days for the verdict. So we were waiting. It was just like a waiting game. So we didn't know when we were going to find out. So when they told us that we had a verdict, we all piled up in a courtroom, and it was just quiet, very tense. It was just real tense. And so when the verdict got read, Antonio family just, they had their responses. For us, I was just numb.
What were their responses?
The typical response, they blurted out, ran out the courtroom, slammed doors. Understandable. That was their response. I don't know why they were surprised by the verdict. But.
Right. And for you to even say understandable, it's almost like you all have held this secret, knowing that what this man did to this innocent man, the nerve to even act like, oh, this is so undeserving. He doesn't deserve it. Like he's the victim, to walk out. I mean, it's not understanding.
Well, what I'm saying is to understand the mindset will be to understand. So, I understand my family temperament and their mindset. That's no shot at nobody. That's why I understand it.
That's why
I am them.
Yeah.
I understand it.
So he just mentioned that you broke down, but I wanted to ask, now that we got the victory on one end of the stick, Margot, and we've heard this whole time what Antonio has went through, what he has endured, the support that he has gotten from the new family, from his wife, from God, the strength from the therapist.
Absolutely.
What has been your strength through all of this?
My strengths just have been trusting and believing in God. Like calling on him every second, every moment. Because he was all I had. Because there was even times with this situation where I couldn't talk to my family about things that we were doing. My sisters didn't find out about the recordings and stuff until after we did it. Right? So just going into certain spaces and knowing that we have to do this, knowing that I have to stand with my husband, and to clear it up too, Antonio didn't want me to go with him. He felt like, this my dad, this my family, let me go and handle the business. But for me, I was like, you crazy. Right. You're not going in a lion's den by yourself. And my whole thing is like, I got your back. Yeah. I'm going to have your back to the end, but we're going to do this together. I'm going to be here and I'm going to support you, because I understood I was all the support he had. At any point, did either one of you want to throw your hands up in the marriage, or did you just say, it's too much? No, I can't do it. Us not making it in the marriage, and I'm gonna be honest. During this time, we were dealing with a lot of things, but we got closer. We were inseparable. We held each other. We loved each other, even when things were not his best. Even when Antonio wasn't feeling his best, because keep in mind, he was dealing with something that would normally make a regular person be on drugs. Yes, it turned out to be someone totally different. So I understood the pressure that he was dealing with. And I was just grateful that God kept us and he held us through it. He gave me strength, because he was my only source that I had. So the moment in the elevator when you broke down, what was that for? The moment in the elevator for me was just God just telling me, I got y'all. I felt like the battle was won. I felt like we fought a good fight. I felt like Mr. Pinto got the justice that he deserved. Never met him, but I was in it. Like he was my daddy, And so I just was grateful that we were able to get justice for him and to stand with Antonio. I'll do it again.
I think for me, just I didn't realize the weight she was carrying into that moment, because I'm in the battle. I'm going through it, and I just, it was at that particular moment, like watching her just break down, I realized I thought I was carrying it. You really was carrying it. I was surviving it. You was carrying it. I wasn't carrying anything. I was surviving, man. I was I was moody. I was up and down. It was a lot of. I know a lot of things that she dealt with to help me with this, and so like I'm forever grateful for that. But just that moment, I realized, and that's why I said earlier, don't ever undervalue or underestimate what people do to support you in your tough times, because they give up a lot of themselves to stand there for you.
Yeah, and to even think that you guys were blending families too, right?
Absolutely.
So how did this change or even affect the dynamics of your own household?
Well, we had to have hard conversations with our children. We had to let them know what was going on. And, Antonio kids still had access to his family too. So it was certain things and conversations that we had to have and just really tried to protect them as much as we could.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it was a tough situation in the moment for my kids, because my ex was still connected to that side of the family.
Okay.
So I'm in fear if anything happening to my kids, So it was just one of those situations. But through prayer, when it's too big for me, it's just right for him, and that's why I had to be at with it.
That's a good word. Do you think that this has any good or bad effect on how you father your children now as a father?
Man, the short answer, I want to say that it has a good effect on them. I am very, very mindful of everything I do because I understand the impact of a father today. Mothers, we love y'all, but it's no impact greater than a father. And I realized that. And I hate I didn't fully get to experience that. So with God's will, I'm going to make sure my kids get to experience me not only being their father, but me being a grandfather. So through trauma, if you grow the right way, you reap the benefits of trauma.
Yeah.
But you got to do the work.
And I think honestly today, I think our children they're experiencing a healed, better version of their father. All 5 of our children. Antonio's relationship with them, all 5 of them, has gotten so much better.
Wow.
Let's be clear, it's hard raising children it's hard fathering children when you haven't been fathered.
Yeah, that's the part. Yeah.
It's hard. You make a lot of mistakes. And imagine Antonio, and let's be clear, when I met Antonio, I thought he was an amazing man, an amazing father, right? But he was an amazing man and an amazing father dealing with a life of trauma, with this big, heavy burden that he had been carrying around for a very long time. So he wasn't able to be his full self or his healed self. But today, what I'm most grateful for is even me as his wife. I have a healed husband.
Yeah.
I have a husband who has been made whole. And so he got me different. He loved our children different. He take care of our family different. And so if for nothing, it was a lot that we went through, but the outcome in the life that we're living today, it was so worth it.
Yeah.
It was so worth it.
And just as we said earlier, when I say this was the start of my purpose, this is what it came down to. Just making me a better father, a better husband. I had to put some work in. It hasn't always been easy. It has not. It has been hard at times. It have been times I wanted to give up. Have been times I didn't want to go forward with this and do it. But with the grace of God, him keep pushing me, stopping just wasn't an option. And I see now. I see what it's all for now.
Oh yeah, it was the way that everything happened. It was definitely this was your assignment. As we put it to rest, and we got the guilty verdict, and then we go back for sentencing. You mentioned that you were not in the room; it was just designated people. So you're in the room with the sentencing. What was the sentencing?
Yeah, so he got a 20-year sentence. That was the time back then. 20 years do 15. That was the sentence. And yeah.
So we got the sentencing, we got the 20 years, he's gone away. The repair, if it happens, it happens. If not, the journey, the new happens over here with the new family. Are you okay, or do you still wonder the why behind all of this?
Well, my mom passed away 2 years ago. As it relates to my mom, we went about 2 years where we didn't speak at all. Well, we didn't speak. She was always open for me. I wasn't open. I was on the healing journey.
Okay.
Once I healed, I have full forgiveness now, to answer your question. So the last year and a half or 2 years of my mom's life, we spent it as mother and son.
Okay.
I didn't have one more question to ask her. I don't need no more. It's nothing else that I needed from her. I got to, through my healing and just complete forgiveness, I got to enjoy my mama for a year and a half just as a mother and a son.
Right.
A lot of people will question how. I don't, because I understand who I serve. So I know how that works with forgiveness. And whatever she had to deal with or pay for, that was her walk to do. But I got the opportunity just to be her son. And as it relates to my uncle, I don't know where I'm at for a reconciliation, but total forgiveness.
Yeah.
Wish him well. I have no malice or anything in my heart at all. Not bits and pieces, none. So that's where I'm at. And anybody that have any issue with me, man, I simply pray for you. That's all. I offer you nothing but prayer. I have no issue with anybody.
You definitely are not the results of the statistics of Black men raised in a single family home, projects, inner city. Not only that, but to have had so much drama in your household where you laid your head, the family secrets that go deep. You definitely are not what statistics say we would see. A great man, a healed man, a married man, a father figure, a man that forgives and forgave on the process, on the journey. What would you say? Because there's so many bad things that happen in the story, but the good outweighs them.
Always.
And it's so surprising. I'm shocked to hear the good that has outweighed in this story. But what would you say are the dangers of family secrets?
I think the biggest danger of family secrets is it tears people apart.
For sure.
That's the biggest thing. Through family secrets, it affects the trajectory of the family. Had I not got the healing and everything I needed, I can see the difference in my kid trajectory.
Oh, yes.
And people who's involved in this kid trajectory, who's unhealed. Healing means a lot, just not for you. Your whole lineage is tied to it.
Yes.
So with family secrets is a bad cycle. Nothing good come from family secrets. This is my story.
Yeah.
Everybody have a story. Everybody have that uncle who have touched kids.
Yeah.
Everybody have their story. Everybody have that story where people have been abused. This is just my story.
Yeah.
And I just encourage anybody, get healed and speak your truth. Don't let nobody stop you from speaking your truth, no matter how mad they get, no matter what they say.
Margaret, what's your take on family secrets?
Family secrets destroy families.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple. Everybody have family secrets, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Some way, some form. I've recently dealing with a family secret in my personal life. Family secrets destroys individuals.
Yeah.
It leaves some stuck. It forms deceit.
Yes.
It destroys trust. And like Antonio said, it messes up your family. Like as you have children and bring other people into the family, those things continue. And so for me, Antonio and I definitely were intentional to share this story because we understand that we all deal with it.
Yeah.
But we want to be that example to let you know if we got through it, you can get through it as well, because it's not easy. But when you stand for what's right, and when you understand that it's healing on the other side, because that's what we're telling this story for. We want people to understand that you don't have to stay where you are.
Right.
you can heal through it and come out better on the other side and change and do it for your family so things could be different.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, Sheree, and I'll leave that part right here. I can definitely see the difference in me who decided to be healed and walk through it,
Yeah.
and those who still living as if this didn't occur. I see the difference. Is a level of freedom with getting healing and speaking your truth. It's freedom.
Yeah. And I think that what I've learned, just hearing your story and looking at Black people, I'm just talking about our people, the family secrets and sweep it under the rug and what goes on in my house stays in my house. It's almost like our parents did it because their parents did it. Because their parents did it, because their parents did it.
Absolutely.
And it just kept going. The root will never, ever get to it. But when somebody, this generation, stands up and say no more.
Yeah.
We breaking the cycle. We're doing this. And
that's what I said.
Sheree,
No
even down to us telling our story on our platform.
Yes.
We're breaking the cycle.
Yes.
We don't have to be silenced.
Nope.
And that was my thing with Antonio. Tell your story out loud.
Yes.
People need to hear this out loud. We're no longer sitting where we're in our living room and he and I are discussing this story. God gave us the Love Rekindled platform for a reason. If we're going to heal families and be here for communities, we can't be here for communities if we can't let the community know this is what we dealt with in our own backyard. And look how God showed up for us. Look at the charge and the mantle that he's given us because of our obedience.
You know, said something too. I mean, just the words that when you just said the show, the Love Rekindled. I can't help but picture the moment, the year and a half that you had with your mom. Like you literally rekindled that love. Because we don't know what she went through.
Don't.
Right?
Don't.
But you changed that. You rekindled that love from the birth that she gave to a son that she didn't know how to protect.
Absolutely.
But God gave you the strength to bring it back together. And in this moment, I now understand, because I got to tell you, Antonio, I don't know how you forgave your mom or your siblings, but it was when you just said God gave us this platform, Love Rekindled. You did that. You did just that before it was even birthed.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so powerful.
Yeah, because the forgiveness for her, most people won't understand. They won't. Me and my mom was at a great place when she passed away. That's why I don't care what nobody says, Sheree.
And you needed that.
I can care less what anyone think. If anyone see this and think, oh, he said this about me and my mom, we here. She would be proud of me right now.
And God is pleased.
Yeah, she would be proud, because what I was asking of her, she wasn't even capable of doing it. And I understand that. So through my walk and understanding forgiveness, who am I? Who am I? I love you right there, and whatever you have to deal with, that between you and him. Let me just be your son. And I took pride in doing that my last year and a half.
What's the message that you want to deliver to other men that are carrying the weight of past traumas or current trauma?
Do not be afraid of what anyone is going to say.
The fear.
You are responsible for getting the healing for your family as the head of the family. You are responsible for that, not your wife. We're responsible for that. And when I can tell you through this walk, I am seeing differently for my kids and their elevation because of decisions that I made. That I didn't even know why I was making them, but just trusting him and just doing it.
Yeah.
So tell your story.
Tell your story.
Tell your story. And it's your responsibility to do it. That's what I tell men, because I know they got a story.
Responsibility.
I know you got a story. Tell your story.
As a couple, what are your hopes that other couples would gain from this journey or from your story?
I hope couples really see this story and feel inspired with understanding that marriage is not easy. You're going to go through some things. You may even go through some life-altering situations. But the thing is, you said death do us part, right? And so what I want other couples to know, even as Antonio and I sit on this platform as certified relationship coaches, we still work for healing. We still go to therapy. We still have counselors and people who we lean on to help us heal and help us navigate. But we want couples to know that if God did it for us and if he brought us out, he can bring you out. You have to stick together. And you have to stand. When your person can't stand, you have to stand. When Antonio couldn't stand it, when he couldn't pick up the phone and make the call, shaking, scared, nervous, anxious, I made the call. And you got to understand that it's important. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's not going to always feel good. But if you do it right and you love that person and y'all hold hands, y'all could get through anything.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. I just think, to Margot's point, be intentional about meeting a little boy and a little girl in your spouse.
That's good.
Yes.
Wow.
Be intentional about that. Because at the moment you meet them, you really will understand your partner.
Powerful.
And I think if Margot never met that little boy in me, that 8-year-old confused, hurt little boy, there's no way she could support me becoming this man. There's no way. It's no way.
Yes.
So that's what I would tell couples. Be very intentional. Make them introduce you to that little boy, little girl.
And be intentional about
that's who show up.
allowing them to see it.
What you don't understand about, that's them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what, Antonio, what you said was so powerful. Because that's exactly what we do with our couples that we coach. We can't get to the foundation. We can't get to the root of the issue if you don't know the little girl or the little boy. And whenever you're able to do that, it seems like it gives everybody a charge in a relationship to know who they need to show up for.
Yeah.
Because that little girl and that little boy is still there. If you haven't healed it and got it together, that little boy and that little girl is still alive and still very well present in your relationship.
Yeah. It opened up the empathy for y'all to be able to move forward. So
I can see that.
we just gave you a free session.
They normally charge for that.
Yes.
Antonio, before we wrap up, I'm truly honored to have sat here and been able to tell your story, to walk with you both on this journey. Margot, you are such an inspiration to watch a woman stand by before saying I do. So to stand by him and walk with him through it and have the strength that God gave you. I'm even more elated to hear that you finally had the moment in the elevator. Yeah. The moment in the elevator should probably be its own chapter in the book. I just feel like it deserves that because
it said a lot.
You did. It did. You were able to release. You released, and in the same tone you was giving God glory. Yes. That's powerful. And for you to sit there and get to understand her release, what it did for you, was even more enlightening. So I applaud you both. I know that the world is going to be different. You said if we just touch one. Trust me, I know you touch.
All I need is one.
You just need one.
All I need is one.
I know you've touched many.
All I need is one.
Men and couples together. To wrap it up, though, Antonio, I need you to tell the world, and I think that's your camera, what do you hope that someone takes from you telling your story? I know you spoke to the men, and I know you spoke to the couples, but from your story, because it's his own story, it's something else. So, what do you hope people take away from your story?
I hope you would take away the power in speaking your truth, your power in getting healing, and your power in blocking out what anybody gonna think and say about you. I know people gonna have a lot to even say about me even sharing this story. I'm okay with it. And I suggest you be okay with anybody that has a problem with you doing what you feel is right and what you believe in. Continue to do what you feel is right and what you believe in. I promise you it's well worth it.
Antonio, before we wrap, I just want to let you know, just as your wife, I'm super proud of you. I know that this journey was not easy, but I'm even more proud in this moment to sit with you while you tell your story. Because this is another level of healing for you. And I don't think you even realize it, but I'm proud because you're really going to help some people, and you're really going to help men understand that they don't have to carry everything on their own. You know, so I'm proud of you and I love you.
I love you too. And I appreciate you. And it's no way I could have done any of this without you. And that's obvious. You can look at the timeline and it'll tell you I couldn't have done it without you. So
I love you.
I'm grateful. I love you as well. Thank you.
They can counsel me any day. I don't know about y'all. I need counseling. I would say this, that there is healing in transparency, right? There's power in telling your story. And what we've learned here today, that a lot of times every story basically just needs love to be rekindled. God says his greatest commitment is love. And if we just rekindle that, that's where we can all find that same forgiveness that Antonio found. And we can find that same healing that Antonio found. We can find that same friend that he found in Margot, and that same partner, if we first just be transparent with ourselves, right? And get the healing and let the love be rekindled. I cannot tell you enough about the power of love. And the fact that this God's greatest commandment says it all.
Yes.
So if we leave you with nothing else, one, tell your story. Be transparent, be healed, and love.